Hi there, I'm Denise. I'm an artist in Sydney, Australia. This week's video, I will be showing you a number of progress pics of this painting that I have decided to take off my the wall in my lounge and have another go at it. And for better or worse, it's challenging me in a way, and something interesting and wonderful I think that it's showing me is how much benefit there is in doing like journal practice, other practice, to work out your color schemes and things like that. It's so funny how it's taken me so long to kind of get that how much not time I waste, but time I will use up on a large piece, painting it over and over and over until it feels right. And I can see that if I would spend more time creating smaller possibilities, I'm thinking, like when you do this kind of size, it doesn't really matter. It's so fast to change the things, right? And all the greens are like a language I know how to kind of mostly speak. But when I want to change the feeling, the dynamic with the color scheme into something that I'll know it when I get there, it takes a bit of experimenting. And I just wonder, why do I have so much resistance to doing a whole bunch of exercises, say on paper or in my art journal, and I go straight to the canvas? There's all kinds of reasons, I think. And what I can say in this instant, this week, I had spent so much time recently working on, very tiny and just that next size up. There was a part of me kind of thinking, God, when are we ever going to paint large again? Have we forgotten? Are we scared of that, etc.? So there was that, and sort of like an internal invitation for me to branch out and be brave and try something big for a change, because I hadn't done that for quite a long time. And so it seemed a little bit easier to enter back into an older painting and rework it, the one that I wasn't quite satisfied with, rather than start a whole fresh. And so I'm glad I've done that in a way, because I might have been just sort of cross at the idea that I'd wasted a whole new canvas or whatever story I might have made. So anyway, this one here has been around this week. The energy of this week has been extreme, as it's been the US election. And when you're a highly sensitive type person, the energy in the field definitely comes in. It just definitely comes in, and especially when you have a bit of interaction online and you're seeing and feeling your friends and the general community on your socials and stuff. So I just want to presence that, the magnitude of the division that the world has felt as an overflow from the US election has been huge. And so I just want to hold a space of grace and kindness to your heart if you're suffering in any way from the fallout of all of that. And if you're happy with the result, well then that's great too, because in the end it's going to be people who feel happier in themselves that will flow out to others. So yeah, I'm not interested in having political discussions as such, but I didn't want to go past that giant elephant in the room without just mentioning it. So yeah, I think I've had real difficulty being in my own, finding my own energy and groove and space this week, because it's felt so intense and so huge, this looming dread of what's going to happen. So today is the day after the result, and I have that real feeling, and I did have the real feeling this morning that really reminded me after, probably more specifically the day after Mum died, because I haven't been with that many people that have died, but that feeling after someone dies, it's not the same at all as when Mum died, because that was a very peaceful lead up and it was very special. But all that to say that it's that feeling of after so much intense lead up and feeling, and then there's such a final change that you have to adjust to and respond to. And there's sort of a relief. There's a relief from that way. I always think the opposite. Relief from that kind of real pressure to, okay, the decision, and now we take one step forward into the future, and what are we going to create that to be? So yeah, somehow I did feel an energy shift this morning. But, you know, bearing in mind, I know I live all the way in Australia, so it's not in my country. I think I would be having a way harder time if it was in my country and the government here had made all these decisions, etc. So, yeah, I probably won't speak much more about that sort of thing, you know, going forward. But as I said, that's been a big thing this week. So, yeah, I think I'll just sort of put together the pieces that I've made from where it was to now where it is, and then I'll just sort of keep going with it, and hopefully show you the end result before too long. And I'm also going to encourage myself to playfully do some works on paper along the way. This would be a really good idea for that 100 pieces project that I started, and you know, it's waiting for me to do some more pieces. So that seems like a good idea, to invite myself to work on the elements that I'm finding challenging here, and one of those things might be the color scheme. If you have an idea of the palette that you're going to use in a painting, a whole lot of decision making and angstiness gets taken away, because you know the parameters that you're giving yourself, and so then it can be more about design and value and stuff like that. So yeah, that's probably the biggest lesson I've learned this week. Learned it newly, if you like, and it sort of dropped in a bit deeper and made me realize, yeah, how about we work on that? So thanks for joining me. Hope you enjoy it, and see you next time. So this painting I have had for quite a while, maybe a couple of years, and it's been through so many iterations, and I'm still not fully satisfied with it. So I've taken it into my iPad, into Procreate this morning, thinking, all right, what if I have another go at it? I think probably quite inspired by this one over here, because this one I absolutely love, and I kept it because I felt so strongly about it being a breakthrough piece that I wanted to do some more like that. So this one here, I feel like one of the problems is I've sort of just been organic about it, and I think it was supposed to be much more sort of graphic, and the very big vine there, or the plant, was a deep navy blue to start with, and then it was sort of overpowering, and I've just sort of gone back and back and back trying to make this one work. And I reckon one of the things that is problematic about it is it doesn't feel grounded. It's sort of like a snapshot of a sort of a jungle-ish vibe, but it's just not making sense and a powerful enough design. It's got some yummy shapes, which I love shape. And so realizing that what I love is line, shape, color, I thought, okay, what might I do to rework this one again, you know, like just for the fun of it, because I've had it hanging in my lounge and it sort of bugs me a bit. So instead of just working small on paper today, I thought, well, why don't I have a go at this one. So I'll show you what I've played around with in the iPad. So this is one idea. Kind of sort of thinking of a bit of a third of a table and having one of the plants remain and having it go into a vase. And I really love this kind of technique of having shapes, but they are coloured in with what was there before. So that's sort of an idea. It's still not quite resolving what's going on behind. Then there was this one, but it's sort of like more straight, flat, which is sort of how I see, in a way, flat, because of having one eye. I don't judge distance very well, so that's kind of curious. I do kind of love, like line work. So there's a lot of line here. And then these sort of spontaneous way that the shapes are coloured in because of what was there before. And then this one is maybe the most recent one that I looked at. I particularly loved how this plant is in front, and like this one has a little more depth, actually, really much, whereas this one kind of like cuts it into sections, and it's not as just not as kind of dynamic, I guess. This idea is a little more dynamic in shape. Now what I'm faced with is, why am I beholden so much to just this green and sort of white cream palette? So in my mind, I'm thinking, oh, all right, what if I wasn't so dictated to by the palette? And one of the things I particularly loved was this section of the painting. Actually, I should show you on the painting. I'll just pop over there. Yeah, I particularly, I loved this bit down here, which would then get lost under the table. So if I consider, oh, well, what if I made some sort of a shape on the table so I could actually retain some of that? This is the idea of the plant that could remain on the table. But what I wanted to say was, this, I think, is probably my favorite area of this painting because of all this beautiful, subtle kind of details and things that I captured. So that's the piece that I probably love the most. And I know people say don't get rid of your darlings, whatever, but I actually think, what if you focus on what you love, and then what wants to change in the rest of it kind of makes more sense to be in this case, because I can make a whole new painting without doing that. Do you know what I mean? But the fact that I've spent so many hours, and I love I just love what has happened there. It doesn't make sense to me to just paint over it because it's not working. How can I make this work is, I think, what I'm interested in. So that is the question. Yeah. And so I'm sitting here with my cup of tea, and I will let you know what happens next. Here's where we're at the minute. I've been a little bit bold with a rough brush outline, and I just love those lines. I don't know why it is, but I like kind of bold, scratchy black lines. Anyway, that's what we're up to at the moment. And it looks like I'm going to have this plant, even though it's a little bit tall, it looks like I'm going to have that come forward as well with this one. So that's curious, isn't it? Well, it is to me. So they have come forward. Then I've got the chairs, I've got this platter of pears on the table, and then I've still got to figure out what's going to happen behind. So I'm just sort of wondering, as I go. Here's a progress picture. I've just been covering the kind of table with varying shades of green, kind of turquoisey, with a view to thinking this is still kind of underpainting. I needed to sort of get rid of the distraction of the lines and the shapes that were in there before and see what wants to be created new. So it's kind of becoming a little clear-ish, and yeah, just the progress pic. I just caught myself thinking, if I had played around more with this, with maybe like a color scheme on smaller pieces or on paper or whatever first, I might not be kind of struggling so much as to where to go ahead with this piece. So that's an interesting observation, because I am just noticing where in my art practice do I get held up, what's going on. So I'm just noticing that, and yeah, that's all. I was awake in the night and I did a bit of painting. I'm excited to be working on a large painting actually, but oh great, Philip's just starting to mow the lawn. Oh, I'll have to see if we can still hear. Okay, so something I'm having to face here is I don't think this painting is working very well, only in the way that I don't love it. And so what I've got happening up the top here could be a large window looking out to nature. I, in the middle of the night, got rid of this large leaf thing. So funny, that is probably where this whole thing started, with this giant big bloody leaf thing. And so I whited that out, and I have been trying to bring some sort of interest and dimension to this. And now I've realized, I'm questioning whether that's even working. I was even thinking about it in the middle of the night. It was occurring to me that that doesn't feel like an organic, interesting, loose, free sort of shape. It's like, it's just so designy, like a design element, instead of a branch from nature that you brought in, put on the table. I think, you know, it's so interesting to notice how much easier it is to do this sort of free form, interesting, you know, like this whole arrangement, because it's so little. When it becomes large, and yeah, look, having already had this all happening behind, what I feel like I need to do now is go back some steps, and inspired by this one, mess the thing up again. Just mess the thing up again. The table, this plant, and, you know, maybe even let go of all of that. And so isn't that funny? It's funny to me that, you know, all the things that I thought, oh, well, I'll try and save that, and I'll try and save that, and I'll save a bit of that. And now sort of I feel like most of it has to go, I think. I have still saved this thing, and so I've just got to check. It's kind of like the quiet party in the room, the quiet piece, based on its colour, but it's now sort of dictating and telling me what's not working with the rest of it. So I don't know, look, I'm just finding this quite amusing. It's been so long, I think, since I've worked on a really large piece. And then this one, you know, just trying to redo it. I've repainted over this canvas so many times I've lost count now. So it's really heavy. So anyway, that's what I think. I need to just bring a lot of like my favorite things, you know, mark making and transparent paint, and see what happens from there. I'll see if I might set up a camera. It's just that I haven't really got things set up properly to do, you know, how-to videos and stuff. You know, I'd love to be able to do that in the future, create some classes and things like that. But for the time being, I'm just checking in and sharing my process to, one, connect with you out there, but also to keep myself practiced at talking about the work and just keeping myself that incentive to keep going and make something new and think about what's working, what's not working. I love that process, and I love sharing about it, and it helps to talk about it out loud sometimes. So I hope it helps you too. I had forgotten how much fun it was to just spread things around. So I started off sort of splattering and using a bit of a brush, and it didn't take long before I wanted to just put my hands into it and move things around. So it was a really cathartic thing to do, this messing things up again. I think I've been worried that I would get paint all over the floor, even though I've covered it in lino. Being in a rental, it changes things a bit. Currently, when I look at this, I feel like this one here doesn't really make sense as much as doing something else here, making this like the feature arrangement with the pears for company and maybe a glass vase. So reworking that space, and then this one, it's too tall. So the one that I made every effort to save, I now am not certain that it should stay. So I might have to just spend a little more time playing with designs for this. And I'm quite liking the idea of maybe using this type of arrangement, these flowers, perhaps, to just bring a bit of lightness and some sort of a different kind of element. But yeah, so funny. So funny. You change one thing, it changes everything, but you can't see that until you do. I've sped this piece up because, yeah, it's just easier sometimes to speed it up and then voice over it later. And it was hard for me in a way to do this because, as you know, I love the spontaneity of all the marks underneath. But what I discovered with this particular arrangement that I've been painting, it just was too dark and losing, you know, it was just getting lost on the background and just not being yummy enough. So I needed to just take it right back, and with the idea of gum leaves. And I brought the purple in just to give a bit of life behind the green, knowing that I'd probably take it all away again, but there will be little bits of it left, which makes a difference and gives a little bit more energy and vitality to the colour when there's contrast against it. And I had the pleasure of going to meet a new friend who is visiting from America. I hadn't met her before, but she's a very close friend of my close friend. So I had the joy of visiting with her this week, and we went to the Bogey Hole Cafe in Bronte. We had a nice walk and everything. And so I took a photo when no one was sitting at these seats near where we had lunch, because I just loved bentwood chairs, and I loved how this cafe had lovely little arrangements with these gorgeous purple flowers. And I just looked across and thought, oh, if I had the time, maybe I'd sit and sketch this. And I actually like in-person sketching this kind of thing better than using a photo. But anyway, I thought I would do the exercise here just because I loved that little setting that I'd taken that photo of. And I guess that helped drop the idea in to, you know, notice how much I like bentwood chairs. And it then kind of gave me the idea to change the chairs in my painting, because I just didn't love what was happening with the way that the chairs were sitting in this painting in particular. So it's lovely when life, interrupts and offers ideas to the painting, kind of in the same week. It was quite lovely. So I might just sort of speed up this little sketch, and so then we can get back to the painting. This is where it's at the moment. I've purposely done those chairs pink and just roughly done in the background, not really intending to leave the final colours that way. Although when I look at it through the camera, I really love how the pink looks against the green, because pinks against green do look lovely. But gosh, this painting is putting me through my paces. Toying with what colours to bring into it, wondering, what style do I love it to be anyway. It's really a bit challenging. What's also challenging is trying to keep track of where the leaves are and aren't. So that's kind of weird. That's why I wanted to bring, the background back in. And the reason I took away those other square chairs, but they just felt like a big gate, or like a fence, like they were just so angular. So that's why I thought I would bring in these kind of more feminine shape, I suppose, more curve. And I do love bentwood chairs. But yeah, now I'm just sort of trying to figure out what colors, and not wanting to do much to that, but wondering if it needs something to define it a little bit somehow. Maybe it needs some very darks and some very lights. I'm not exactly sure, but I'm kind of leaving that part and just focusing down here. The pears were supposed to be so spontaneous based on using the background paints, but now I've kind of like made them painterly. So there's that going on, and then there's this that I've sort of painted, and I'm quite enjoying the gum leaves. I was wanting to leave, the colours and the interesting surface I had before for a big chunk of that leaves, but they were too dark, so I needed to lighten the leaves. And I'm still sort of wondering, all right, do I just go sort of safe and go for a kind of whitish tablecloth? But then what items might I like to leave on the table that will give it more interest? Because, once you start making a white tablecloth and sort of losing all of that, you can't get that back the same way like that. And so, yeah, it's really challenging me.